Commander Vrex leaned forward in his command chair, 6 eyes narrowed as he studied the human female on the view screen. She appeared utterly unremarkable, small, soft, with none of the obvious augmentations or military bearing he'd come to expect from Earth's combat personnel. "That's their negotiator?" he asked, mandibles clicking in what his species recognized as amusement. "A civilian?" "Mun," his second-in-command, Officer Kaldar, consulted her data pad. "According to intercepted communications, her name is Eleanor Frost. No military rank. No known combat training. Occupation listed as consultant." Rex made a guttural sound that approximated laughter. "The humans mock us by sending this consultant to negotiate terms of their surrender. After we decimated their orbital defenses, perhaps they have finally accepted their inevitable defeat," Kaldar suggested, though her tone conveyed skepticism. "Shall I have her brought aboard?" Rex waved a clawed hand dismissively. Yes, standard security protocols. We'll scan for weapons, communication devices, or implants." "And Kaldar?" "Have Lieutenant Mazix present. His expertise on human psychology might prove useful." "As you command, sir." The human woman stood in the center of the receiving bay, surrounded by 6 heavily armed guards. She was smaller than Rex had anticipated. Humans were already diminutive compared to the average Vexari, but this one barely reached his chest plate. Her skin was pale, her hair an unusual shade that shifted between gold and red under the harsh lights. But it was her eyes that gave him pause, a piercing blue that reminded him uncomfortably of the targeting lasers on their own battle cruisers. "Welcome aboard the Dominion vessel Inevitable Victory," Rex announced, his translator converting his clicking speech into standard human English. "I am Commander Vrex of the Vexari Dominion." "You are?" "Eleanor Frost," she replied, her voice surprisingly steady, "representing Earth's diplomatic corps." Lieutenant Mazix stepped forward, his smaller frame and less armored appearance marking him as one of the scientific caste. "Diplomatic corps? Not the Earth Defense Force?" Eleanor shrugged, a human gesture that Vrex had learned indicated casual dismissal. "The EDF has been significantly reduced after your recent attacks. My government thought a civilian approach might be more productive." "Productive," Rex repeated, tasting the word. "An interesting choice. Your planet's defenses are crippled. Your major cities lie exposed to our orbital bombardment. What exactly do you hope to produce from these negotiations, human?" "Terms that don't involve the extinction of my species would be nice," Eleanor said, with a small smile that didn't reach those unsettling blue eyes. Rex felt his secondary heart quicken its pace. Something about this human triggered his predatory instincts, though he couldn't identify why. She was unarmed, unaugmented according to their scans, and physically unimposing. "Very well," he said finally. "We will discuss terms. Officer Kaldar will show you to our negotiation chamber. I assume you brought data on your government's proposed surrender conditions?" Eleanor nodded, holding up a small, transparent data cube. "Everything you need to know is in here." Mazix accepted the cube with his smaller manipulator appendage, immediately inserting it into a scanning device on his wrist. "It appears to contain standard diplomatic files. No detectable security threats." "Excellent," Rex said, though he couldn't shake his unease. "Officer Kaldar, escort our guest. I will join shortly after reviewing preliminary data." As the human woman followed his second-in-command from the room, Rex turned to Mazix. "Your assessment?" The lieutenant's head tilted, a gesture of uncertainty. "Physically unremarkable. Stress indicators within normal parameters for the situation. But. She seems unusually calm for someone whose planet faces imminent destruction," Mazix said. "Either their species truly doesn't grasp the severity of their situation, or—" Rex growled low in his throat. "Or what? Or she knows something we don't." The negotiation chamber was one of the few areas on the warship designed with non-Vexari in mind. The temperature was adjusted to human comfort levels, and the furniture modified to accommodate their smaller frames. Eleanor sat alone at one end of a long table, appearing completely at ease as she studied the star map projected on the far wall. Rex entered with Mazix and Kaldar flanking him, along with two armed guards positioned at the door. "I hope you find our accommodations adequate," Rex said as he took his seat opposite her. "We have had limited experience hosting humans aboard our vessels. Usually they arrive in smaller pieces." He expected fear or at least discomfort at his thinly veiled threat. Instead, Eleanor smiled again, that same smile that never reached her eyes. "The room is lovely. Much nicer than the holding cells I imagined you'd use." Mazix placed a data pad before Rex. "We have analyzed your proposal, human. It's ambitious." "Ambitious?" Rex barked a laugh. "It's delusional. Earth maintains control of its major population centers. Vexari forces restricted to lunar orbit. Reparations for damages incurred during unauthorized military action. You speak as if you have leverage." Eleanor leaned forward slightly. "Everyone has leverage, Commander, even the seemingly powerless. And what leverage does Earth possess?" Kaldar interjected, her tone dripping with disdain. "Your orbital defenses are destroyed, your military fleet reduced to scattered remnants. Your ground forces would be obliterated the moment we decide to launch a full-scale invasion." "True," Eleanor conceded. "But you haven't launched that invasion yet, which suggests you want something more than simple conquest. Resources? Technology? Information? Whatever it is, complete destruction won't get it for you." Rex felt a flicker of admiration for her perception. The human wasn't wrong. The Dominion Council had specifically ordered him to secure Earth's quantum computing facilities intact, along with several other technological assets. Simply reducing the planet to slag wasn't his mission. Perhaps, he acknowledged. But that still places us in the position of power. "We can take what we want and leave your species clinging to survival on whatever parts of your world we deem worthless." Eleanor nodded thoughtfully. "You could. But then you'd miss out on what we are actually offering." She reached for the data cube, which Mazix had placed on the table. With practiced ease, she manipulated its surface controls, bringing up a new set of projections. "What you are seeing is the location and specifications of 17 advanced research facilities scattered across Earth and our solar system. Facilities our public government doesn't acknowledge exist." Rex studied the projections with growing interest. If accurate, these facilities contained exactly the kind of quantum technology the Dominion coveted. But something didn't add up. "Why would you offer this information freely?" he demanded. "These would be your planet's most closely guarded secrets." Eleanor's expression remained neutral. "Because in exchange we want something very simple, controlled integration rather than conquest. Your empire gets our technology and scientific expertise. We get to continue existing without becoming slaves or casualties." Mazix was studying his own data pad intently. "Commander, preliminary analysis suggests these facilities do exist. Orbital scans detect energy signatures consistent with the provided coordinates." Rex felt his unease return tenfold. This was too easy. Humans were known for their tenacity, their willingness to fight beyond all reasonable hope of victory. This calm surrender of their most valuable assets contradicted everything in their psychological profile. "I find myself curious, MS Frost," he said carefully. "What exactly is your role in your government?" "You say consultant, but consultant to whom? For what purpose?" "Problem solving," she replied simply. "When complex situations arise, I'm brought in to resolve them. And this situation, the imminent conquest of your world, is simply another problem to solve." "Every problem has a solution, Commander. Sometimes it just requires looking at things from a different perspective." Rex tapped his claws against the table's surface, a nervous habit from his youth that he'd never fully eliminated. "You will understand if we need to verify this information before proceeding with any agreement." "Of course," Eleanor said. "Take all the time you need. I will wait here." Rex stood abruptly, Officer Kaldar, please escort our guest to the diplomatic quarters. Lieutenant Mazix, with me. She's hiding something, Rex declared once they were alone in his private command center. Mazix nodded. Agreed, but what? Our scans detected no weapons, no communication devices, no augmentations or implants beyond basic medical work. Could she be some sort of biological weapon? A carrier for a pathogen engineered to target our species? Possible, but unlikely, Mazix replied, consulting his data. Our decontamination protocols are thorough. And if the humans possessed a bioweapon capable of eliminating us, they would have deployed it during our initial attacks. Rex paced the room, his unease growing with each step. What about the data she provided? Could it be falsified? The energy signatures appear genuine, but we'd need to send probe drones to confirm. If I may, Commander, perhaps we are overthinking this. Humans are pragmatic creatures. Their history shows numerous examples of offering valuable concessions to avoid total defeat. Rex stopped his pacing. Have you ever seen footage of their military training exercises? Or their combat simulations? Humans train their warriors to continue fighting even when victory is impossible. Their historical records celebrate last stands and heroic defeats. No, this sudden pragmatism doesn't fit their psychological profile. He turned to the view screen, bringing up the surveillance feed from the diplomatic quarters where Eleanor was now sitting calmly, reading something on a small data pad they'd allowed her to keep after thorough scanning. Look at her, Rex said softly. No signs of stress, no desperate hope or fear. She sits in the heart of an enemy vessel as comfortably as if she were in her own dwelling. As Mazix studied the feed. Perhaps she's simply exceptional at controlling her physiological responses. Or perhaps, Rex said slowly, she's exactly where she wants to be. 4 hours later, preliminary confirmation arrived. The coordinates Eleanor had provided did indeed house facilities matching her descriptions. Drone reconnaissance showed advanced security measures protecting structures that bore no resemblance to standard Earth military installations. Rex called a meeting of his senior staff. The information appears legitimate, he began, addressing the assembled officers. Which presents us with an interesting opportunity. These facilities contain exactly the kind of technology the Dominion Council sent us to acquire. Science Officer Javix, who had been analyzing the drone data, raised a hand. With respect, Commander, something about this doesn't align with standard human behavior patterns. These facilities show no signs of evacuation or data purging. It's as if they want us to capture them intact. My thoughts exactly, Rex agreed. Which is why I'm ordering a full tactical analysis before we proceed. I want to know if these facilities could be traps. Kaldar, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. And what of the human negotiator? She's requested an update on our deliberations. Tell her we are still analyzing the data, Rex ordered. I want continuous surveillance. Every movement, every word. If she so much as sleeps in an unusual position, I want to know about it. As the meeting disbanded, Mazix lingered. Commander, I have been reviewing historical data on human diplomatic practices. There's something called a Trojan horse strategy that appears repeatedly in their literature. Explain. It refers to an ancient conflict where one human nation offered a seemingly valuable gift to their enemies, a large wooden animal containing hidden warriors. When the gift was brought inside the city walls, the warriors emerged and opened the gates to the waiting army. Rex's mandibles clicked in agitation. You believe this human woman is our Trojan horse? I believe, Mazix said carefully, that humans have a cultural affinity for this type of strategy. They celebrate it in their histories and entertainment. And this situation bears certain parallels. Rex turned to the view screen, which still displayed Eleanor in her quarters. She was now performing some kind of physical exercise routine, simple stretches and controlled movements that seemed designed to maintain flexibility rather than build strength. If she is a weapon, Rex mused, what kind could she possibly be? Our scans detected nothing. Perhaps the weapon isn't physical, Mazix suggested. Could she possess information? Access codes? Something that becomes dangerous only in specific circumstances. Rex watched as Eleanor completed her exercises and returned to reading. Double the guard on her quarters. Restrict all crew movement in that section. And prepare a shuttle. I want to inspect the nearest of these facilities personally. The human settlement known as Geneva lay partially in ruins from the initial orbital bombardment. The Vexari shuttle descended through clouds of dust and debris to land near the outskirts, where one of the secret facilities was supposedly located beneath an unassuming office complex. Rex led the heavily armed survey team himself, accompanied by Mazix and a squad of elite warriors. The streets were deserted, the human population either evacuated or in hiding. Life signs? Rex demanded as they approached the building. Minimal, reported one of his warriors, checking a scanner. Pulled a few readings from the surrounding structures. Nothing from our target building. The facility's exterior was unremarkable, exactly as Eleanor's data had indicated. A simple permacrete structure with modest security visible to casual observation. But as they approached, more sophisticated measures became apparent to their scanning equipment. Quantum encryption on the locks, Mazix noted with interest. Advanced sensor arrays disguised as climate control units. Impressive camouflage. Can you bypass the security? Rex asked. And Mazix connected his datapad to the security panel beside what appeared to be the main entrance. Normally, this would take hours. But he input a sequence of commands, and to Rex's surprise, the doors slid open immediately. The human provided access codes. They work. Rex's unease deepened. Proceed with extreme caution. Full defensive posture. The interior of the facility belied its mundane exterior. Past the initial reception area, which maintained the office building facade, a concealed elevator took them 3 levels underground to a vast laboratory complex. The walls were lined with quantum computing arrays, experimental physics equipment, and what appeared to be prototype weapon systems. Mazix struggled to find words. This is beyond what our intelligence suggested humans had achieved. These quantum processors are at least 2 generations ahead of what they have demonstrated publicly. Rex moved carefully through the facility, noting the absence of personnel. Where is everyone? A facility this important should have security, researchers, support staff. According to these terminals, one of his warriors reported, accessing a computer system, the facility was evacuated 6 days ago, just before our fleet entered the system. They knew we were coming, Rex realized. But they left everything intact. Why? Mazix was examining one particular array with growing excitement. Commander, this appears to be a quantum entanglement communication system. If it functions as I believe it does, it would allow instantaneous communication across any distance, bypassing all known methods of signal interception. Exactly the kind of technology the Dominion Council wants, Rex noted. Is it operational? It appears to be in standby mode, Mazix replied. I could likely activate it with minimal effort. Rex hesitated. Everything about this situation felt wrong. The abandoned facility, the freely offered access codes, the unguarded technology. No, he decided finally. Download all research data, but touch nothing. We will analyze everything thoroughly before attempting to activate any systems. As his team began the process of extracting data from the facility's computer cores, Rex's communicator chimed. Commander, Kaldar's voice came through clearly despite being in orbit. We have detected unusual activity from the human negotiator, explained. She requested the exact coordinates of your landing site approximately 10 minutes ago, claiming she had additional information about that specific facility. When denied, she appeared to accept the refusal, but our sensors detected a momentary spike in neural activity. What kind of spike? Alone. Our medical team suggests it could be consistent with activating some kind of implant, but our initial scans detected no such devices. Rex felt his combat instincts screaming at him. Prepare the shuttle for immediate departure. We are returning to the ship now. Sir, one of his warriors called out. The data extraction is only at 30% completion. Leave it, Rex ordered. Something's wrong. As if in response to his words, the facility's lighting suddenly shifted to a deep red, and a soft alarm began to sound. What's happening? Rex demanded. Mazix was frantically working at a terminal. Some kind of security protocol has activated. I'm detecting energy buildup in multiple systems throughout the facility. Is it a self-destruct sequence? No, it's... Mazix's voice trailed off as his eyes widened. Commander, the quantum communication array just activated. It's transmitting. To where? Is everywhere, Mazix whispered. The signal pattern suggests it's connected to similar arrays at every facility listed in the human's data. The realization hit Rex like a physical blow. It's not a Trojan horse. It's a trigger. Everyone out. Now. Back on the inevitable victory. Eleanor Frost sat cross-legged on the floor of her quarters, eyes closed, breathing steady and rhythmic. To the guards watching her on surveillance, she appeared to be meditating, a common human relaxation practice. They couldn't see what was happening inside her mind. Behind her closed eyelids, Eleanor's consciousness expanded far beyond the confines of her physical form. The neural lattice implanted throughout her central nervous system, undetectable by conventional scanning technology because it was composed of modified human tissue, was now fully active. 17 quantum nodes across the Earth and its solar system, now linked through the activation of the Geneva array, connected directly to her augmented brain. Through them, she could perceive and control every piece of technology that humanity had carefully, deliberately left for the Vexari to find, including the quantum field destabilizers hidden within the Vexari shuttles they'd allowed to be captured during the initial invasion, including the navigation systems of the 50 automated defense platforms the Vexari thought they'd destroyed, including the Vexari's own communication network, which now unknowingly carried Eleanor's commands alongside their legitimate traffic. She was, in this moment, the deadliest weapon humanity had ever created, a living, breathing command center with the computational power of 17 quantum supercomputers and access to every system the Vexari had touched since entering Earth's solar system. And she was exactly where she needed to be. On the bridge of the inevitable victory, alarms began to sound. Rex's shuttle barely cleared the atmosphere when the first wave of attacks hit the Vexari fleet. The defense platforms that had appeared destroyed suddenly reactivated, their weapons tearing through the shields of 3 support cruisers before anyone realized what was happening. Report. Rex shouted into his communicator as the shuttle rocked from a nearby explosion. We are under attack. Kaldar's voice was tight with stress. The defense platforms we confirmed destroyed have reactivated. Our systems are malfunctioning. Weapons, shields, communications, everything is failing. The human, Rex growled. Where is she? Still in her quarters, but there was hesitation in Kaldar's voice. But what? She's different, Commander. Her vital signs have changed. Brain activity, unlike anything we have seen in humans before. And she's smiling. The shuttle lurched violently as its navigation system suddenly failed, sending them into a spiraling descent back toward Earth's surface. The pilot fought with the manual controls, barely managing to level their flight path. Our systems are being overridden, the pilot reported. Something is accessing our control interfaces remotely. Rex turned to Mazix, who was frantically working on his data pad. What's happening? The quantum communication array, Mazix said, his voice hollow with realization. It's not just communicating, it's infiltrating. Every system that's connected to any technology we recovered from Earth is now compromised. How is that possible? Our systems are isolated from captured technology. They should be, Mazix agreed. But somehow they are not. It's as if he paused, horror dawning on his features. Commander, I believe I understand the human's purpose now. I'll explain. She's not just a negotiator or even a conventional weapon. She's a conduit. Her neural pattern matches the transmission signature from the quantum array. Somehow she's interfacing with it directly. She's not controlling the systems, she is the system. The shuttle shuddered again as the pilot fought to maintain control. Through the viewport, Rex could see his mighty fleet in disarray, ships firing on each other, others drifting powerless, some beginning the bright, fatal plunge into Earth's atmosphere. "Get us back to the inevitable victory," Rex commanded. "We need to eliminate that human immediately." "I'm trying, Commander," the pilot responded, "but our navigation is compromised. I can barely keep us airborne, let alone reach orbit." Rex stared at the chaos enveloping his fleet, the pride of the Vexari Dominion reduced to confused, fighting chaos in less than 10 minutes. She planned this, he realized aloud. From the beginning. The facilities, the data, the cooperative demeanor, all to get herself aboard our command ship. "But why?" one of his warriors asked. "Why not just activate this weapon from Earth?" "Range, perhaps," Mazik suggested. "Or maybe she needed direct access to our command systems." Rex shook his head slowly, a terrible understanding dawning. "No, she needed to see our faces. They sent her not just as a weapon, but as a message." His communicator crackled to life once more, but instead of Kaldar's voice he heard Eleanor Frost's calm, measured tones. "Commander Rex," she said pleasantly, as if they were still in the negotiation room. "I believe it's time we discuss the real terms of surrender. Yours, not ours." "What have you done?" Rex demanded, rage and disbelief warring in his voice. "Exactly what I was designed to do," Eleanor replied. "Solve problems. Your fleet is now under my control. Your ships are killing each other. Your ground forces are stranded. And your homeworld is about to receive some very interesting data packets through your quantum relay." Mazix looked up from his pad, mandibles trembling. "Commander, she's right. She's somehow using our own communication relays to transmit back to the Dominion core worlds. The data, it contains our complete military specifications, defensive codes, strategic analyses." "You won't win this way," Rex growled. "The Dominion will send another fleet. 100 fleets if necessary." Eleanor's laugh was soft and utterly without humor. "Perhaps. But they will do so knowing exactly what happened here. Knowing that we allowed you to take our technology. Knowing that everything you touch becomes ours to control. The quantum entanglement works both ways, Commander. Your ships didn't capture our technology. Our technology captured your ships." The shuttle lurched again, stabilizing into a smooth flight path. "I have restored control to your pilot," Eleanor continued. "You may return to your ship. In fact, I insist. I'd like to continue our negotiations face-to-face." The communication cut off, leaving Rex staring at his officers in stunned silence. "Your orders, Commander?" the pilot asked hesitantly. Rex looked out at his dying fleet, at the planet below that had appeared so vulnerable, so ripe for conquest just days ago, at the ruins they'd created, thinking they were crippling humanity's defenses, when in reality they'd been following a script written by their intended victims. "Take us back to the ship," he said finally. "It seems we have terms to discuss after all." As the shuttle changed course toward the inevitable victory, Rex couldn't help but wonder what other surprises the unremarkable-looking human woman had in store. One thing was increasingly clear: they had gravely, perhaps fatally underestimated Earth and its defenders, especially the ones who appeared to be mere civilians. The shuttle docked with the inevitable victory amid scenes of chaos that made Rex's primary heart clench with rage and humiliation. Half his fleet hung dead in space, their systems completely shut down. Several ships drifted in decaying orbits, already beginning the fatal descent toward Earth's atmosphere where they would burn up like meteors. 3 cruisers had been completely destroyed, their wreckage scattered across near orbit like a grotesque monument to Vexari hubris. And all because of one human female, one supposed civilian. "Commander," Mazik said quietly as they prepared to disembark, "perhaps we should consider alternative strategies before confronting her directly." Rex turned all 6 eyes toward his science officer. "Such as?" "Was. The human appears to control our systems remotely. If we could isolate the ship's core functions, Perhaps shut down all quantum-enabled technologies temporarily. And do what, Lieutenant? Float helplessly while the rest of our fleet destroys itself? No, we face this threat directly. Rex checked his sidearm, though he doubted conventional weapons would be effective against whatever Eleanor Frost had become. Besides, she controls our systems. If she didn't want us returning to the ship, she could have easily crashed our shuttle. And Mazix's mandibles clicked nervously, which suggests she wants us back aboard. Why? We are about to find out, Rex replied grimly as the airlock cycled open. To his surprise, the docking bay appeared normal. No signs of combat or resistance. The regular contingent of guards stood at attention, though their posture seemed oddly rigid. Officer Kaldar waited just beyond the airlock, her normally immaculate uniform showing signs of hasty adjustment. Commander, the situation has evolved since our last communication. Evolved? Rex growled. Our fleet is decimated, our systems compromised, and you call that an evolution? Sir, the human Kaldar began, but was interrupted by a voice over the ship-wide communication system. Commander Vrex, Eleanor Frost's voice echoed through the docking bay, somehow both gentle and unbearably smug. Welcome back aboard your vessel. I have taken the liberty of adjusting certain operational parameters, but I hope you don't mind. Rex's claws flexed involuntarily. Where are you? Still in the diplomatic quarters you so generously provided. I find I have much better control of the situation from here. Your security team has been quite respectful of my personal space. I have returned the favor by allowing them to continue breathing. The casual threat sent a chill through Rex's exoskeleton. He turned to Kaldar, lowering his voice. Status of the crew? Most systems are operating on automated protocols, Kaldar replied quietly. Life support, gravity, essential functions all remain online. But weapons, propulsion, and communications are completely locked out. We can't even send a distress signal. And the human? Rex demanded. What is her physical status? Kaldar's secondary eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of extreme stress among her subspecies. Unusual. Her vital signs show elevated neural activity beyond anything our medical database recognizes for humans. Body temperature increased by 2 degrees. Her pupils dilated. But she hasn't moved from her position in nearly an hour. I can hear you discussing me, Commander. Eleanor's voice came through the speakers again. Your ship's audio systems are quite sensitive. Shall we dispense with the whispered consultations and speak directly? I'm eager to continue our negotiation. Rex straightened to his full height, mandibles flaring in a display that would intimidate any Vexari subordinate. This is no longer a negotiation. You have committed an act of war against the Dominion? A soft laugh echoed through the bay. An act of war? How would you characterize the unprovoked destruction of our orbital stations? The bombardment of civilian population centers? The explicit threat of planetary conquest? Were those diplomatic overtures in Vexari culture? We acted under the authority of the Dominion Council, Rex insisted. Our claims to this system were established. Save the propaganda for species that haven't done their research, Commander, Eleanor interrupted. We know exactly why the Vexari came to Earth. Your Dominion's expansion has followed the same pattern for the last 70 years. Identify systems with advanced quantum technology, manufacture territorial disputes, invade under the pretext of establishing Dominion authority, and strip the conquered worlds of all valuable resources and technology. Rex felt his jaw tighten. She wasn't wrong. The Dominion's strategy had been remarkably consistent and effective until now. I'm coming to see you, he announced abruptly, face to face. No guards, no weapons. There was a brief pause before Eleanor responded. I appreciate the gesture, Commander. I accept your terms, though I should mention that the no-weapons provision is somewhat redundant at this point. The conventional armaments won't affect our current dynamic. Rex turned to his officers. Mazix, continue analyzing what data we have, but find me a weakness, an access point, anything we can use. Kaldar, Prepare emergency protocols for the crew. If this ship goes down, I want as many of our people to survive as possible." Both officers saluted, though Vrex noted the fear in their postures. Fear was unfamiliar to the Vexari military elite. They were accustomed to being the source of terror, not its recipients. As he strode through the corridors toward the diplomatic section, Vrex was acutely aware of how wrong everything felt. The ship functioned normally on the surface lights, environmental systems, artificial gravity, but subtle differences betrayed the alien presence now controlling it. Displays flickered with data he couldn't read. Doors opened before he reached them. And most disturbing of all, his crew moved with a strange hesitancy, as if suddenly aware they were passengers rather than operators of their own vessel. He stopped before the entrance to the diplomatic quarters, steeling himself for whatever confrontation awaited. The doors slid open without him requesting access. Eleanor Frost sat cross-legged in the center of the room, her eyes closed, breathing slow and measured. She wore the same simple gray clothing as before, nothing that suggested her true nature or capabilities. As the door closed behind Vrex, her eyes opened, that piercing blue somehow more intense than he remembered. "Commander," she greeted him with a slight nod. "Thank you for joining me." "You have left me little choice," Rex replied, remaining near the door. "What are you?" Eleanor smiled, and for the first time the expression seemed to reach her eyes. "Complicated. But I suspect you are asking about my function rather than my existential nature." "Don't toy with me, human. You are clearly not the civilian diplomat you claimed to be." "Actually, I am exactly what I claim to be," Eleanor countered. "A consultant brought in to solve problems. My credentials as a member of Earth's diplomatic corps are entirely legitimate." She rose to her feet in a single fluid motion. "What I didn't specify was my particular area of expertise, which is neuroquantum integration, the melding of human consciousness with quantum processing systems." She tapped her temple lightly. "My brain contains a neural lattice grown from my own cells but structured to function as a quantum interface, undetectable by your scans because it registers as normal human tissue." Vrex felt simultaneous revulsion and reluctant admiration. "Your species modified you to become a weapon." Eleanor shook her head. "No, I volunteered to become a solution." "There's a difference." "Not from where I stand," Vrex growled. "You have destroyed half my fleet and hijacked my ship. Those are the actions of a weapon. Those are the actions of a deterrent, Commander. If I were truly a weapon, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Your fleet would be completely destroyed, your ship plummeting through Earth's atmosphere, and your homeworld receiving the complete specifications of a quantum virus designed to disable your civilization's infrastructure." The casualness with which she outlined humanity's capability for devastation chilled Vrex to his core. "Then what do you want?" Eleanor gestured to the conference table, where two containers sat one-sized for human physiology, one for Vexari. "I thought we might share a beverage while discussing terms. Your ship's fabrication systems make a passable approximation of what we call coffee. I took the liberty of preparing your equivalent nutritional stimulant as well." The sheer audacity of the gesture offering him refreshments from his own ship's systems that she had hijacked nearly provoked Vrex to violence. But millennia of evolution had not made the Vexari apex predators without instilling certain survival instincts. And every one of those instincts told him that attacking this human would be suicidal. He approached the table cautiously. "You still haven't answered my question." "What do you want?" "The same thing I wanted when I first came aboard," Eleanor replied, taking her seat and lifting her container. "A controlled integration rather than conquest. Peaceful coexistence, mutual benefit." Rex reluctantly took his seat opposite her. "You expect peace after this demonstration of hostility?" Eleanor's eyebrow raised slightly. "Hostility? I have disabled your fleet without casualties beyond the 3 ships that fired on each other before I could establish full control. Considering your forces killed over 4,000 humans in your initial attack, I'd characterize my response as remarkably restrained." She took a sip from her container before continuing. The Vexari Dominion has conquered 7 civilizations in the past 70 years. All possessed quantum technology approaching or exceeding your own. All now exist as client states, their resources exploited, their populations subjugated. They accepted the protection and structure the Dominion provides, Rex insisted, the official line so ingrained he spoke it automatically. Please. Eleanor sighed. Let's not insult each other's intelligence. Your Dominion is parasitic, Commander. You don't innovate, you appropriate. Your technological development plateaued over a century ago. Since then, you have advanced only by conquering species that surpass you and absorbing their achievements. Rex wanted to deny the accusation, but truth gave her words a sting he couldn't dismiss. The Dominion Council would never admit it publicly, but their strategy had indeed shifted from internal development to external acquisition generations ago. Even if what you say is true, he said carefully, what alternative are you proposing? You have demonstrated you can neutralize our military advantage, but the Dominion won't simply retreat because of one defeat. Eleanor smiled again, but this time the expression held something almost predatory. This isn't just a military defeat, Commander. It's an existential revelation. Every piece of technology your forces have taken from Earth is now compromised. Every system they have interfaced with is under our control. And most importantly, she leaned forward, her blue eyes seeming to pierce through his exoskeleton. The quantum communication relay to your homeworld has transmitted the full technical specifications of how we achieved this. Rex felt his secondary heart stutter. You are bluffing. Such a transmission would require precisely the technology you came here to steal. Eleanor finished for him. Ironic, isn't it? The very quantum entanglement systems you coveted have become your greatest vulnerability. Your Dominion Council is receiving, as we speak, detailed instructions on how humanity defends itself against technologically parasitic species. The implications cascaded through Vrex's tactical mind. If she spoke the truth, the Dominion's entire conquest strategy was compromised. Every technology they had appropriated from other species could potentially become a vector for attack. You have started a war you cannot win, he said, but the words sounded hollow even to his own hearing organs. No, Commander. I have prevented a war by demonstrating its futility. Eleanor set down her container. Earth doesn't want conflict with the Vexari. We simply refuse to be conquered. The information we have transmitted to your leadership makes it clear that any further aggression will result in catastrophic consequences for your civilization. Rex's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed her claim. Mutually assured destruction. An ancient concept. But still effective. Eleanor nodded. Now, shall we discuss the actual terms? I believe we can structure an arrangement beneficial to both our species. Officer Kaldar paced the bridge, her exoskeleton clicking nervously against the metallic floor. Anything? She demanded of the communications officer. Nothing, ma'am. All standard channels remain blocked. Quantum relay is active but not responding to our commands. Mazix looked up from the science station where he'd been analyzing the ship's systems. It's fascinating, actually. She's not so much blocking our control as establishing priority override. Our commands are being received, acknowledged, and then superseded. I fail to see how that academic distinction helps our current situation, Lieutenant, Kaldar snapped. It suggests intention, Mazix explained. Yeah, if she simply wanted to disable us, she could have shut down all systems. Instead, she's maintaining life support, internal communications, environmental controls, everything necessary for crew survival. Your point? My point, Officer Kaldar, is that she wants us alive. Which implies this isn't about destruction. It's about coercion. Kaldar's secondary eyes narrowed. Or perhaps she simply hasn't decided how she wants us to die. The bridge doors slid open, and both officers turned, expecting security personnel or perhaps one of the engineering team. Instead, Commander Vrex entered, followed by the human woman. Kaldar instinctively reached for her sidearm, but Rex raised a hand to stop her. "Stand down, officer," he ordered. "EMS. Frost is here as a consultant." The way he pronounced the word carried a weight of irony that wasn't lost on his officers. Eleanor stepped onto the bridge, her gaze sweeping over the various stations with evident interest. "Remarkable efficiency in your design," she commented. "Though your quantum processing architecture is several generations behind what it could be with proper development." Kaldar bristled visibly. "Commander, what is the meaning of this?" "This human has attacked our fleet, compromised our systems, and you bring her to the bridge?" "The bridge was my idea, actually," Eleanor interjected before Rex could respond. "I thought your crew might appreciate hearing the terms of our agreement directly." "Agreement?" Mazix echoed, his scientific curiosity momentarily overriding his alarm. "You have reached terms?" Rex moved to the command center of the bridge, his posture rigid with what Kaldar recognized as suppressed rage and more shocking humiliation. "The human has presented a comprehensive analysis of our strategic situation," he announced, his tone carefully neutral. "Based on this analysis, I have authorized preliminary acceptance of their proposed terms pending Dominion Council approval." A murmur ran through the bridge crew. Preliminary acceptance was virtually unprecedented in Vexari military protocol. It represented a commander's assessment that further conflict would be detrimental to Dominion interests. "What terms?" Kaldar demanded, her ceremonial claws extending in agitation. Eleanor stepped forward, seemingly oblivious to the hostile stares from the Vexari crew. "3 primary conditions. First, immediate withdrawal of all Vexari forces from Earth's solar system. Second, formal recognition of Earth and its colonies as sovereign territory, exempt from Dominion claims. Third, establishment of a technological exchange program controlled, regulated, and mutually beneficial." "Exchange program?" Mazix repeated, his scientific interest clearly piqued, despite the circumstances. "Yes," Eleanor nodded. "Earth is willing to share certain advancements in quantum theory, molecular fabrication, and sustainable energy production. In exchange, we would gain access to Vexari achievements in propulsion technology, asteroid mining techniques, and biologics." "This is absurd," Kaldar objected. "Commander, you cannot seriously consider surrendering to a single human's demands." Rex's mandibles flared in warning. "Officer Kaldar, this human has demonstrated capability to neutralize our entire fleet without sustaining significant casualties. The Council sent us to acquire advanced technology, not to sacrifice Dominion assets in a futile gesture of pride." He turned to Eleanor. "However, I must insist on one additional condition. The immediate deactivation of any control mechanisms affecting Dominion vessels or systems. We will withdraw under our own power, not as puppets directed by human technology." Eleanor's expression remained neutral. "Acceptable with verification protocols. As your fleet withdraws beyond the orbital path of your planet Neptune, control will be returned to each vessel sequentially. Any deviation from the withdrawal trajectory will result in immediate resumption of external control." "And our ship?" Rex asked. "The inevitable victory will regain full operational status once we have returned to Earth with our diplomatic party myself safely delivered." Eleanor glanced around the bridge. "Your crew has behaved admirably under stress, Commander. You should be proud." The condescension in her tone wasn't lost on anyone present. Kaldar looked ready to launch herself physically at the human, protocol forgotten, but Mazix intervened. "Commander, if I may," the science officer said quickly, "I believe the proposed terms merit serious consideration, particularly the technological exchange. The potential benefits to both civilizations could be substantial." Rex nodded slowly. "Prepare the formal response to the Council. Include complete sensor logs of the engagement and MS. Frost's demonstration of capabilities." He turned back to Eleanor. "I assume you will permit that transmission?" "Of course," she replied with a slight smile. "In fact, I insist upon it. The Council should have a complete understanding of today's events and the reasoning behind your decision." Kaldar couldn't contain herself any longer. "This is surrender. The Dominion does not surrender to lesser species. Officer Kaldar, Rex's voice dropped dangerously low. You forget yourself. This is not surrender. This is strategic reassessment based on new intelligence. The difference may seem academic to a warrior, but I assure you the Council will appreciate the distinction. He gestured to the main view screen, which now displayed the disabled Vexari fleet scattered across Earth orbit. We came for technology. We found it. That it was not in the form we expected does not change the fundamental calculus of our mission. Eleanor stepped closer to the view screen, studying the fleet with an expression Mazix found disturbingly similar to how Vexari scientists might observe specimens in a laboratory. Your vessels will begin receiving control restoration protocols within the hour, she said, turning back to Vrex. I suggest preparing your crew for departure. Earth's defensive systems remain on high alert, and I would hate for any miscommunication to result in unfortunate incidents during your withdrawal. 3 days later, Vrex stood alone in his private command center, watching the blue-green orb of Earth recede on his view screen. The inevitable victory led what remained of his once proud fleet toward the outer reaches of the solar system, their course precisely matching the withdrawal trajectory Eleanor Frost had specified. A soft chime announced Mazix's arrival. The science officer entered without waiting for permission, a breach of protocol that reflected the changed dynamic between them since the encounter with humanity. Status report? Rex asked without turning. Ship functions continue to normalize, Mazix replied. Propulsion, weapons, and communications all appear to be operating within standard parameters. However, Rex finally turned. However, diagnostic systems detect subtle alterations in our quantum processing architecture. Nothing that affects functionality, but the coding structure has been elegant is the closest translation. As if someone rewrote our base algorithms to operate more efficiently. A parting gift from MS Frost, no doubt, Rex said, his tone unreadable. Perhaps. Mazix hesitated. Commander, the Council has responded to our report. Vrex had been expecting this. Their verdict? Mixed. They acknowledge the strategic necessity of withdrawal, given the demonstrated capabilities of human quantum integration. They have authorized formal recognition of Earth's sovereign status and instructed diplomatic corps to begin negotiating the terms of technological exchange. And the other matter? Mazix's mandibles clicked uncomfortably, as anticipated. They require a formal responsibility assessment. Your presence is requested at the Central Tribunal upon our return. A responsibility assessment was the Dominion's euphemism for a command failure investigation. Depending on the tribunal's findings, Vrex could face anything from demotion to execution. The Vexari did not treat military humiliation lightly. As it should be, Vrex said with surprising equanimity. I led our forces into a situation I failed to properly assess. The consequences are mine to bear. Mazix stepped closer. Commander, I have included my own analysis in the report. The humans' capabilities were unprecedented. No reasonable strategic doctrine could have anticipated or countered their approach. This was not a failure of leadership, but an encounter with a technological paradigm we had not considered possible. Rex appreciated the loyalty, even if he doubted it would sway the tribunal. Thank you, Lieutenant. But the commander bears ultimate responsibility for the outcome of any engagement. That is our way. Speaking of the human, Mazix said, changing the subject slightly, the final neural scans we took before her departure have yielded fascinating results. Her brain structure appeared to be in a state of constant flux, reconfiguring itself to optimize for whatever system she was interfacing with at any given moment. A living weapon indeed, Rex mused. More than that, Mazix insisted. An entirely new form of intelligence. Neither purely organic nor artificial, but a seamless integration of both. The implications are significant. Vrex turned back to the view screen, where Earth was now just a bright point of light among countless stars. The Council believed we were technologically superior to humanity, and that their quantum research was promising but nascent, that they were vulnerable. "We were wrong," Mazik stated simply. Yes. Rex's mandibles clicked in a pattern that signified rueful acceptance in Vexari communication. But more concerning is what else we might be wrong about. If humans have achieved this level of neuroquantum integration, what other capabilities might they possess that we haven't yet encountered? Mazik had no answer, and Rex expected none. The question was rhetorical, a reflection of the new uncertainty that had entered Vexari's strategic thinking. As the ship prepared to engage its faster-than-light drive to leave the solar system, Rex received one final communication from Earth. No video, just a text message on his private channel. The source was listed simply as E. Frost. The message read, "Safe journey, Commander. I look forward to our next negotiation under more amicable circumstances. Until then, remember appearances can be deceiving, especially when it comes to civilians." Rex deleted the message, but its implications lingered. The Vexari Dominion had encountered many species in its expansion across the galaxy. Some had fought with conventional weapons, others had attempted diplomatic maneuvering. A few had even tried technological countermeasures, but none had done what humanity had achieved, turning the Dominion's own technological greed into a vulnerability, creating a defense that functioned as its own deterrent, and accomplishing it all through what appeared to be a single, unremarkable civilian. As the stars stretched into streaks of light around his ship, Commander Rex made a personal vow that whatever the tribunal decided about his fate, he would ensure one lesson was thoroughly integrated into Dominion tactical doctrine: never judge a species by its apparent vulnerabilities, and never underestimate a human who claims to be just a civilian, especially one with blue eyes that reminded you of targeting lasers.